Good afternoon. I am Bishop Edward Crowther, and the family has invited me to officiate this service of memorial for Mary Jane. A few days ago, with her family, we laid her to her rest, where she now rests. Today, we've come to celebrate the life of Mary Jane, to mourn her passing, but to celebrate all that she left of herself behind, which continues to live through each one of us. And so the memorial celebration that the family has chosen will be 4 eulogies from members of her family, and then a slideshow commemorating some of the happy events of her life for which she will be remembered. And then we will bring the memorial to a fitting conclusion. If I may say just a few words about the mystery of life and death. Carl Jung, the great philosopher, psychiatrist, put it really rather well, I think. He said that birth and death make a single curve. And then he put it rather beautifully. He said, in the secret hour of life's midday, when the forenoon becomes the afternoon of life, we sink inexorably into the evening, and from the evening into the night, from which we come to a state of repose from which it all began. Birth and death make a single curve. We end as we began. And then he went on to say, the secret of the happy life is to learn to live comfortably at the hour at which the clock of your life now stands. So when we're young, we're searching for the sunlight. We're doing often outrageous things. We haven't learned yet. But when the noonday comes and we become more adult, we learn to live appropriately. And in the evening and in the night, we learn to live as it becomes that part of the hour of our clock. I've heard so much from so many people about the life of Mary Jane. And it struck me how interesting and beautiful it was to think that she lived pretty appropriately according to the hour of the clock of her life. When she was young, she was fun, outrageous. When she was in her later middle years, she was a wonderful mother and friend, and in her later years, she was a very, very gracious lady. And I'm sure that the family eulogies will enlarge upon all of those things about her. So I would invite Donald, her son, to please present his eulogy.
You know, I never knew how one dries their crying eyes. They either use their fingers or their knuckles. Now, me, myself, and I have always used my knuckles. But as a little baby, my mom would grab my hand and say, "There's nothing to cry about." Today, there is something to cry about. But there is also something to celebrate. So I'd like to say a few words in celebration of my mom's life. Mom, The word you only use once, but when you lose her forever. There was no one like a mom. I've always said my mom was the most wonderful person in the world, but she just happened to be my mom. When I go through her pictures, knowing what time she grew up in, she reminds me that she could have been every World War II's pinup girl. Her beauty as a young woman was at model standards. She gave that up in a second to be the mother to me and my sister. She was on her way to a young modeling career when my dad came all the way back from California to Connecticut to marry her. She thought he was a little crazy, but she took his hand anyway. Then my sister had the privilege, me and my sister had the privilege of being raised by the most wonderful person in the world. Never a day went by, or even a moment, when she wasn't in our lives. There was only one way to get my mom angry. This is if you said something bad about her children. She has, and always will, defend us to her grave. As a young man, I watched her move from a Tom Jones fan to going to rock and roll shows with me and her husband. We also went snow skiing and jet skiing. She had a ski boat. She spent a lot of time in Nacimiento, and she also seen the beauty of Lake Powell and Lake Mead. No matter what age she was never too tired for a quick trip to Vegas. She adapted to what everyone else always wanted. I remember going into her room one night when I forgot my hockey tape. She was crying because she was unable to go to that game. I was ready to stay home with her and not even play. She dried her eyes and said, "Just score one extra for me." I scored 4 goals that night, meaning even when she wasn't there, she was there. Later in life, she had the opportunity to be Jasmine's Nana. You would never think you would hear these words from a 5-year-old girl, but one Christmas, one year, her words were, "I'm tired of opening presents." 1 year after that, she had the pleasure of being the Nana to my son. Suddenly my blue jeans, my socks, and my shirts were not being bought for me. But she supplied Ryan with everything he needed and more. One of her greatest pleasures in life was for me to go off to work so she could babysit her grandson. A lot of people in her stage of life would have said, "It's not your time, it's my time." My mom never thought that way. It was always somebody else's time. She just took part in it. I remember her coming home, laughing and joking, how Ryan made her turn her van in circles just so she could see him laugh and cry. Excuse me, laugh and crap. Laugh and crap, you know what I mean?
Clap. Like crap.
Well, we need a little laughter. There was never a stopping point in my mom's heart. Her love was like the vast ocean. As far as you could see, it would always be there. Going through her pictures, this was clearly understood. She would capture your moment and not hers. They say you change the world by one act of kindness at a time. When I think of that, I wonder where the world would be without Mary Jane.
My Aunt Mary has been part of my life since I was born, but one of the most vivid memories of her is one that occurred long before I even came into being. It is a memory concocted by my imagination based on a story that my mother told me many times as a child. My mother often spoke about my Aunt Mary's prodigious affinity with the animal kingdom. As a little girl, she would sit in the chicken coop, and chickens would flock to her and sit on her head and arms and laugh as she cooed in their own language. But the tale that is emblazoned on my brain is one about a snake. One day, as my mother, my Uncle Donnie, and my Aunt Mary were traipsing about the woods, they came upon a snake in the path. I don't know how old they were. In my imagination, my mother is 7, my uncle is 6, and my Aunt Mary is a mere 4 or 5-year-old. My mother and Uncle Donnie stopped short, screamed in alarm, and turned tail to flee, trying to haul Mary with them. But to no avail, Mary, quite unperturbed by what my mother has described over the years as most probably a poisonous copperhead, dropped her hands and knees and slowly crept toward the snake. And in a tiny, sweet voice, beckoning with her small forefinger, she said repeatedly, "Come here, little snake, come here, little snake." While her wooing of the snake did not result in immediate friendship, it also did not result in a mortal snake bite. In my mind's eyes, the snake gives my Aunt Mary a long, weary, but not unfriendly look, and then, deciding to spare the little human creature, turns in a leisurely fashion, bordering on amicability, and slithers away. My mother's tale of her childhood continues to be some of my best memories, admittedly unsurfed ones, as I was not even alive, but they sit in my mind's archives like a whole series of magical adventure stories for children. As a teenager, my Aunt Mary developed a pronounced attraction to my mother's wardrobe. And to my mother's dismay, she would make numerous articles of clothing from my mom's closet in which to dress herself and her girlfriend. This was apparently a chronic and non-endearing aspect of my aunt's teenage years. What I also remember keenly from my own childhood was the massive pride I felt at having such a beautiful family. My Aunt Mary was extremely attractive, and I remember watching a very handsome man court her on our many outings to the beach. I recall being very sad for him when she ultimately rejected his romantic overtures. Combined with her physical beauty was a softness and sweetness that no one else in the family possessed, nor did they seem inclined to possess. Aunt Mary always smelled sweet, talked sweetly, giggled sweetly, and yet her sweet patience was mind-boggling, irritating at times. Why wasn't she yelling at my cousins when they were behaving maddeningly? At best, she would sometimes speak sharply to my errant cousins, but mostly Aunt Mary seemed to want to woo the world around her with the coos and chirps that worked so well with the birds and the bees. She felt like cotton candy, like a wisp of pretty fabric. Her lipstick shades were pink and corals. Her hair was a warm honey color, and she had pretty kerchiefs and scarves that she'd wear a la Audrey Hepburn style tied under her chin. Once on a trip to the 1964 World's Fair, we all boarded a shuttle bus from the parking lot to the fairgrounds. It was crowded, and so I was assigned to sit on Aunt Mary's lap. On the lengthy and hot bus ride, my restless hands found what I thought was a patch of loose foam rubber under the seat. I started to pick at it in the hope of detaching it. I remember my Aunt Mary's mouth pursing a little to the left into a tight, perturbed knot that would sometimes pucker into when she was irritated and trying to sweetly hide her annoyance. I picked away at the foam under the seat, getting more and more excited that we would soon be eating Belgian waffles and singing "It's a Small World After All" at the Disney Pavilion. Pulling out the foam felt good. It was providing me the same kind of pleasure that one gets from picking a scab. Aunt Mary seemed annoyed with me, and I couldn't figure out why. Finally, just as we were pulling up to the grand entrance to the fair, she said in a sweet but tinged with vinegar voice, "Bonnie, honey, stop picking at my leg like that." "What? I'm picking at the foam seat." "No, that's my leg," she said. I realized that I had mistaken the underside of my aunt's stocking thigh for a spongy foam underside of the bus seat. I felt embarrassed and horrible. I'm sure I left her with quite a bruise, and I felt so stupid. She had lovely legs. It's not like they were pudgy or anything. Somehow in nylon stockings, they felt like a pink curler foam. Years later, I found the episode and my mistake hysterically funny and would recount the story at family gatherings. But I got the feeling she never found it quite as funny as I did, and that both her vanity and her thigh were still a little bruised. As the years went by, we saw less of my aunt and cousins because they moved to California. We still tried to visit as often as possible, and my cousins often spent weeks with us in the summers. As I grew up, I began to recognize that my aunt's life, like everyone else's, had its own share of troubles and sorrows. And in fact, she had far more than many others. Like all of us, some of her woes were of her own making, and some were thrust upon her by the indifference of the universe and the bad luck of the draw. But my Aunt Mary gave me my dear cousin Debbie, and despite Debbie's monumental ability to infuriate, I had been inordinately and unfathomably fond of her my whole life. She has been my partner in pranks, the witness of family gestures, and a courageous and stubborn survivor of hard knocks. And streaks of my Aunt Mary's true sweetness sometimes shine forth through Debbie, despite her best efforts to suppress them. Aunt Mary's last few years on earth were not good ones, and though it seemed for the most part she was well taken care of and content. Alzheimer's disease slowly erased her memory, but for the most part her sweetness remained, and her devotion and love for her most constant and beloved companion, the dog, was not diminished by the disease. I was told that in the final stages of her life she was given a small stuffed lamb to hold, and that she would pick at it and pull little bits of fluff off of it for hours on end. That image of my aunt and the baby lamb resonates greatly with me and seems so emblematic of my memories of her in so many ways, like my picking at her leg, like her love of animals, like the slow disintegration of her memory. The bits of fluff she pulled from the lamb seemed like little pieces of my Aunt Mary, floating away into the air, and I'm sure landing sweetly and gently somewhere, where they will linger until they melt into the fabric of the eternal earth from whence they came, and where my fair Aunt Mary will finally find peace. So, now Ryan, Mary's grandson, is going to come up and say a few words.
You know, when I was a child, I really hated elementary school. But no matter how bad of a day I ever had, it would always cheer me up if, while I was waiting there for my dad to pick me up, instead I saw my grandma's car. Because I knew that meant I was going to her house. And she would always, you know, I would just go there and it was my favorite place. And that's just, it's when you take the world for granted though. You don't understand how the world works or what anything means. So it's hard for me because it seems right when I just started slowing down, looking around at the world, was right when my mind started to fade. So never got to have an adult relationship with my grandma. It seemed when I was the child that's how it was. And then when I was mature, it was more the other way around. But you could still tell that whenever she would look at me, you could see her eyes light up. And that was enough. I just wish that there was a better way for me to let her know that retrospectively I realized how much she did for me. And I really don't know where I would be without her. So, thank you, Nana.
Hi, I'm John Peterson, and growing up, when I was a kid growing up, this was back in the Camino Manadero days, back in the 70s and very early 80s. And I'd like to say something about Mary Jane, that she was just the most awesome person in my childhood. She was, in a way, a second mom, because I used to spend a lot of time over with Donnie. And actually, for me, getting into the industry that I'm in, the collision repair business, I owe it to Mary Jane and Vic, because back in the day, Mary Jane would take me and Donnie out mobbing in the old F-150 that Vic had belonged to his dad. And she would be, after school, we'd go over there and talk. We didn't have our licenses back then. And she would take us out to Moore Mason, and we'd go mobbing, and she was always awesome. But one time, me and Donnie stole the truck and went out, and we were spinning donuts, and we hit a tree. And Vic insisted that we had to fix the truck. Me and Donnie had to fix the truck, or I had to fix the truck because I was driving. That's why I got into my business that I'm in, and I owe it to. She was a beautiful person, a spirit, and God rest her soul, and I'm going to miss her. And thank you, Donnie.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
I have been asked to read the eulogy that Debbie has written for her mother. Mary Jane was a stunner. Words that have been used to describe her have been scrumptious, delectable, gorgeous, ravishing, breathtaking. The only thing that surpassed her outward beauty was her beauty inside. She was never conceited or boastful, and she always stated that her looks were a gift from her parents, so she couldn't take credit for them. The quote in her yearbook was, "A smile is free but worth a fortune." And she certainly embodied that sentiment, always smiling and spreading infectious sunshine to everybody she encountered in high school. She was very popular. She was voted Boys' Choice of Sister, most liked, prettiest and cutest. But being the selfless person she was, she would not accept both honors and gave cutest to the runner-up. She still asks about Mary Jane to this day whenever she runs into one of her siblings in her hometown in Connecticut. People were drawn to her light, like moths are drawn to a flame, even though she never sought attention. When she was young, she did some modeling work, but didn't like the spotlight. She knew that she wanted a married family life. And she had her 2 kids in the early 20s.
In her early 20s.
In her early 20s. And what a mother she was. She was patient and kind and loving and protective. Growing up with Mary was like being in the show The Wonder Years. And they were the most wonderful years imaginable. Perfect holidays with wonderful traditions, well thought out birthday parties and glorious family vacations back east with all the relatives. Mary showed her love in simple ways as well, making a rainy day something you could actually look forward to. Whenever it rained and her kids came in wet from walking home from school, they were always greeted with a roaring fire, a cup of hot cocoa with mini marshmallows and home-baked chocolate chip cookies. She never missed a kiss goodnight or a morning wake-up kiss. She was so very, very loving. And Mary was a nature lover when she was young. If you couldn't find her, then just look up. She was forever climbing trees. In fact, she would climb to the very top of those 30-foot high pines and sway back and forth with her brother and sister on adjacent trees. She spent summers at the lake or beach enjoying the weather after a cold Connecticut winter. And she was an animal lover too, always finding some poor creature that was wounded and which she would take back. Rabbits and birds and squirrels, she would fix them up and set them free. Wild birds would land on her hand, and she could whinny at horses and bring them running from across the field to her. She once caught a neighborhood kid trying to hang a cat in a tree, and despite her loving nature, she pummeled, and I quote, the crap out of him. Animals loved her in return. She had many a loyal dog by her side. A childhood dog would walk her to school and then wait out front, even in the coldest of winter days, until she returned. And finally, the principal gave up and allowed Butch to accompany her to class, in fear that he might freeze to death outside. To the very end, Dandy Doodle, her beloved retriever, and Silky, her cat, remained her constant companions. And then Mary had a Midas touch for the men in her life. Her endless support and hard work made it possible for both her husbands to become very successful. She kept a perfect home and always made it so effortless to do so. Nobody ever had to search for clean socks or underwear. In her home, your drawers were always magically full. And so was your stomach, because she was an excellent cook. And family dinners led everybody stuffed to the couch except Mary, who would be buzzing around cleaning until everything was back in its proper place. And Mary loved children, and they adored her too. All of the boys said they would like to marry her when they grew up. And little girls said they were going to be her when they grew up. She had a beautiful laugh. She was an excellent storyteller. And the world for many will be a little dimmer without Mary's sunshine in it. Mary enjoyed her life, traveling to many places in the world and sharing experiences with her children and her grandchildren. She was young for her age in so many ways, enjoying rock concerts and amusement parks, but possessing the wisdom of the ages. She was a great listener and always had good advice. And even though in the end, Alzheimer's took the best from her, it didn't take the best of her. She remained good-humored, loving, and always kind. She was truly a beauty from her first breath to her last. She was an angel on earth, gone too fast. Now we have the slideshow.
myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Yeah, there will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
For all those times you stood by me, for all the truth that you made me see, for all the joy you brought to my life, for all the wrong that you made right, for every dream you made come true, for all the love I found in you, I'll be forever thankful, baby. You're the one who held me up, never let me fall. You're the one who saw me through it all. You were my strength when I was weak. You were my voice when I couldn't speak. You were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me. Lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believe I'm everything I am because you loved me. Ooh, you gave me wings and made me fly. were my eyes when I couldn't see. You saw the best it was in me, lifted me up when I couldn't reach. You gave me faith 'cause you believed I'm everything I am because you loved me. Oh, you were always there for me, the tender wind that carried me, the light in the dark, shining your love into my life. You've been my inspiration through the lies you weren't true. My world is a better place because of you. You were my strength when I was weak. You were my strength. Voice when I couldn't speak. When I couldn't speak. When I couldn't see. You saw the best there was in me. Lifted me up. You gave me faith 'cause you believed I'm everything I am because you love me. My power. You saw the best there was in me. Believed I'm everything I am because you love me. Oh, I'm everything I am because you loved me.
When the hour is upon us and our beauty is surely gone, no, you will not be forgotten, and you will not be alone. No, you will not be alone. And when the day has all but ended, and our echo starts to fade, no, you will not be alone then, and you will not be afraid. No, you will not be afraid. find all that remains. So just slide over here, leave your fear in the fray. Let us hold to each other until the end of our days. And when the hour is upon us, and our beauty is surely gone, no, you will not be forgotten, and you will not be alone. No, you will not be alone.
What an amazing, amazing life. And if I may say so, what beautiful children. When we're memorializing any person, it's an opportunity which fortunately rarely comes in this form to bring about changes in our own life. The great man Carl Jung said that every crisis is like a womb in which new life is conceived and from which new life can be born. And new life is not born without pain. And so it is in the transformative ability of death of a loved one to change lives very, very powerfully. And the big opportunity that it presents is for families to bond together, to put aside what has happened in the past so often and to look to the present and the future, to base that present and the future on the reality of the now. And at the core of that is the ability to look afresh at what love really means. And it was Debbie who suggested a very beautiful part of Scripture which describes what love is about far, far better than I or I think any other mortal can. Because I think this says it all, and this is what St. Paul wrote. He says, if I speak in tongues of human beings and of angels and I don't know love, I'm like a clanging gong or clashing cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and I know all the mysteries and everything else, and if I have such complete faith that I can move a mountain, but if I don't have love, I am nothing. If I give everything away that I have, and I hand over my own body to feel good about what I've done, but if I don't have love, I don't receive any benefit at all. And just listen to this. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love isn't jealous, it doesn't brag, it isn't arrogant, it isn't rude, it doesn't seek its own advantage, it isn't irritable, and it doesn't keep a record of complaints of things long gone. It isn't happy with injustice. It is always happy with the truth. Love puts up with all things. Love trusts in all things. Love hopes for all things. And love endures all things. And love never fails. As for prophecies, they will be brought to an end, and as for tongues, they will stop, and as for knowledge, it will be brought to an end, for we only know in part, and therefore we can only prophesy in part. But when the perfect comes, the partial will be brought to an end. When I was a child, I used to speak like a child, reason like a child, think like a child, but now that I've become a man, it's time to put an end to childish things. And now we see a reflection in a mirror, and then we will see face to face. Now I only know partially, but then, when everything is done, I will know completely, in the same way that I have always been known completely. And so now, there are three things that remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So I leave you with that agenda for the future. Think about it. And we're here as a family, and the two short prayers. Perhaps you'd like to join in the first one, which is the great family prayer of the Church over many, many centuries, the Lord's Prayer. If you choose, please join with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And so grant, O Lord, to all who are bereaved, the spirit of faith and courage, that they may have the strength to meet the days to come with steadfastness and patience, not sorrowing as those without any hope, but in thankful remembrance of your great goodness and the joyful expectation of life with you. And deal graciously, we pray, with all those who mourn, that casting all cares aside, they may know the consolation of your love. And for Mary, Jane, rest eternal grant to her, O Lord, and let light perpetual shine upon her. And may her soul and all the souls of the departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. And unto God's gracious mercy and protection we commit you. The Lord bless you and keep you, and the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you and all those whom you love, this day forevermore. Amen. And now we conclude with some pictures of the beautiful sunsets that Mary Jane enjoyed in her life. And after the conclusion, I believe we are all invited to the reception at Mulligan's Restaurant and Cafe at the Municipal Golf Course. God be with you.